Share a story about a time when you felt the most confident about wearing your natural hair. What were you doing? Where were you at? And how were you feeling?
Oh, my natural hair journey started back when I was in high school. So I was a soccer player, and I had gone from having a carefree curl as a very young person to spending what felt like years of my life at the salon uh, uh, straightening my hair. And it was sports were just unforgiving on those hairstyles. I couldn't maintain them, and they just didn't really feel like me. I think I felt the most like myself when I had a short natural cut as a young person and a wedge haircut. Uh, but when I was in high school, I was the first person at my predominantly white Catholic Long Island high school to don braids. So this was when what was it? Poetic Justice was popular and in the theaters, and Janet Jackson was one of the first women that I sort of admired and looked up to. A person who I felt sort of was connected to our generation. If I had those kinds of thoughts at the time, I don't think I was actually like, oh, she's the voice of our generation. But seeing her with those long box braids just opened up a world where I didn't have to try to align all this beautiful full texture and complexity into something straight and European. So I saw her box braids and I wanted those. So I told my mother, and we tracked down a place that would do it. And I bought all these packets of synthetic hair and thought I was going for 3 hours, but all this thick hair took about 14 to 20. So I think it was a 2-day experience. But on the other side of it, and where I thought I would start with hair to here ended up, people joke, you get in either the weave chair or the braid chair, and all of a sudden you got hair all the way down your back. I had them all the way to the middle of my back, and you couldn't tell me anything. I was walking around. I felt so confident, so happy. And I got to my school, and like I said, Catholic school, we had a booklet that told us all the different things we weren't and were not allowed to do. And at the time, there was nothing about box braids that was in this handbook. So I'm sure there was a new rule created because of me and my very proud, confident, and outspoken parents that this was something that celebrated my beauty and my Afrocentricity. And so, rules be damned. I was going to be able to wear this, and I very confidently wore this style in my graduation photo. So there are pictures of me up in my school, in our on the wall in my high school that have been there now for 20 something years with me with this just beautiful box braid style. And a lot of other women at my school started following suit, and it was something I was very, very, very proud of. I for probably one of the first times in my life felt very proud to look very different than everyone else around me, and it's only gotten better since.
Share a story about a time when you felt the least confident about wearing your natural hair. What were you doing? Where were you at? And how were you feeling?
So after I finished my master's degree in economics, I applied for and was accepted into the Presidential Management Fellows Program, was nominated by the University of Buffalo, and I headed to Washington with these dreams of doing something. And the program gave me a lot of phenomenal opportunities. So I started out at the Department of Commerce, and then after doing a rotation at the White House Office of the U.S. Trade Representative, I was offered a position and stolen from Department of Commerce and joined the staff there. Our offices were broken down by region and then also different negotiation areas. So I was in 2 offices that served communities in Asia. So Korea, Japan, APEC, and also Southeast Asia and the Pacific. So a lot of my work was on the Pacific Islands, and I would run into people at embassies from Melanesian parts of the world. So a lot of people looked like me, had hair textures like me, and I felt so incredible being in spaces and sharing those spaces with other people, other Black and brown people. I was an Asia expert. And very often when people would arrive at our building, they would look at me with dreadlocks all the way down my back, usually wavy or curly. I'd been growing them for about 7 years at that point, and would automatically assume things about which office I worked in, what my expertise was, and whether I was in a professional negotiating position at the office. I spent more time expressing what I was not, instead of being able to be confident and excited about the work that I was doing. And I'd say that one of the more difficult times I encountered, where I felt embarrassed or uncomfortable, or like I stood out in a negative way, was when I was walking around DC with my boss. I was a young professional and trying to show her, to show them, to show everyone that I not only belonged but had the capacity for great things. And we're walking down the street, and I'm in my business suit and my little kitten heels, and I'm looking like a DC professional, and a white man went by on a bicycle and stopped and started screaming things in what he thought was, a Jamaican accent, and started to inquire about whether I was able to find him drugs. Because when he looked at me, that was all he saw. He didn't see my business suit. He didn't see my professionalism. He made snap judgments about me. So that's a story and a time and a time period in my life where I think it was harder to stand out for my beautiful, luxurious, amazing locks.
What factors help you determine how and when to wear your natural hair? Can you share a story that serves as an example?
So I cut my locks off in, gosh, it must have been around 2008. So I locked my hair for the first time in college, a few years after losing my mother to cancer. She was only 53. And I felt that there was something I needed to do for me. I'd already been thinking about it, but I needed to do for me to mark that moment. In some cultures, people wear black for a period of time, or sit shiva. There are all sorts of different traditions around the world. But for me, it felt like, because my hair and hair discussions were such an important part of my relationship with my mother, it felt like something I should do to mark that place. So I locked my hair and actually allowed it to grow, and until I joined the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative. Not long after that experience I just described on the street, where I was pinpointed as someone whose life choices were not their own, not long after that, I started to think about my hair and what it represented for others, in addition to what it represented for me. And a few days before a very important talk that I gave at the State Department, I was on the docket to speak to the Pacific Island Conference of Leaders. There were prime ministers and presidents from Pacific Island countries in the audience. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice was the opening speaker, and I closed the event. And I had been thinking about cutting my hair for a while, because 7 years had gone by since I lost my mom, and 7 is an important number in a lot of faith communities. And I knew that the length of my hair represented how long I had been grieving. And not to say that grief ever leaves you. You know, there's a gaping wound in my heart for the loss of my mother and also my father, who I lost just 3 years after my mom. But my hair was feeling heavy, and the weight of that grief being with me all the time, and having it caught up in my hair, it felt like it was time. And with this giant event coming up, I decided that it might be fun to switch it up. So I had a girlfriend go to the salon with me. Well, not the salon, the barber. And she did the first cuts in the front. And my locks that were all the way down to my lower back were donated and made into a wig. And I arrived in the office with a little less than an inch of hair. And yeah, it was time for me. It was definitely a me decision. But I've never thought of myself as anything but professional with short hair since. So that was 2008, and I've had some version of this haircut, short, long, sometimes a little color, sometimes not, ever since. And one of the things that I love about having short hair is that it does what it does, and it just is. It's one of the most important parts of the way that I look at myself.
Are there other hair stories that stand out for you, either positive or negative, that you want to share?
Yeah, so another story comes to mind. Right before my wedding, I had super short hair when I met my partner. Probably, I mean, like super short hair. So this is really long since we met. And I had employed a stylist to do the hair of all my bridesmaids and such. And you know, and after we talked through it, she's like, okay, so how much weave do you want me to add? I'm like, what? Or, you know, are we going to straighten your hair? Yeah, there were so many people who wanted to straighten my hair. And I was like, no. This is, I am beautiful. I am striking. I am bride material with my short natural hair. I mean, I've got a barber lined up. I'm gonna go see if he's gonna, you know, clean it up a little bit. But no. So all of my wedding photos, and I'm hoping that we've incorporated some of them into this video, are me with my amazing short natural hair. You know, the hair I was born with. Yeah, I love that so much. That I was just 100% me on that day. And when I get this doctorate, whenever that happens, I don't know how I'm gonna fit my cap on this, but yeah, but I'm gonna show it off. I'm very, very proud of my natural hair. Thank you all for watching. For more information on SICSS-Howard Mathematica, visit our website, follow us on social media, and join our email list.